Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. This is Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor, and this is session number 167 of Exploring the Lord of the Rings, an only episode about 4,000 or so, it seems, on the Council of Elrond. But tonight, we are going to get Gandalf off that tower. That's the plan. And we'll see. Of course, I'm teasing Peter Jackson in my title. It seems a little hard given how little Radagast has to do in the actual published story that you go and replace him with an insect, for one of his major, possibly his most significant contribution to the entire story. So my title is Radagast is greater than Moth, Mad Violinist. That's the title. Anyway, so, that's, at the same time, I can't blame Peter Jackson. I can blame Peter Jackson for bringing the stupid Moth back in the Hobbit films. That was ridiculous. But the first time, it's kind of cool. I will admit it's kind of cool. I can certainly understand the desire relatively early in the first film to foreground Gandalf's awesomeness and the whole, with bird on bough and beast in den and their own secret tongues he spoke thing, to kind of emphasize that, with Gandalf catching the moth and whispering to it and stuff. It's kind of cool. Not going to lie. That's kind of cool. But still, come on, Radagast. Let's give Radagast his day, or his other day here. And frankly, it's a better day. The first time we see him, when he actually has lines, which is something to say for him, but nevertheless, that's when he's being used as a stooge in a deception. And here, of course, he is, through his own faithfulness, saving the day. He doesn't realize he's saving the day, but he's saving the day. And that seems perfectly like an excellent idea here. Okay, but let's dive straight back into the text. We're going straight in today, because today I have an ambitious goal. Today. My goal today is to do 2 slides. I'm just saying, 2 slides today. That's the goal. Okay. At first I feared, as Sauruman no doubt intended, that Radagast had also fallen. Yet I had caught no hint of anything wrong in his voice or in his eye at our meeting. If I had, I should never have gone to Isengard, or I should have gone more warily. So Sauruman guessed, and he had concealed his mind and deceived his messenger. It would have been useless in any case to try and win over the honest Radagast to treachery. He sought me in good faith, and so persuaded me. That was the undoing of Sauruman's plot, for Radagast knew no reason why he should not do as I asked, and he rode away towards Mirkwood, where he had many friends of old. And the eagles of the mountains went far and wide, and they saw many things, the gathering of wolves, and the mustering of orcs, and the 9 riders going hither and thither in the lands, and they heard news of the escape of Gollum, and they sent a messenger to bring these tidings to me. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Sorry, I saw the question, but I missed the name there on Twitter. It is an interesting expression. Also, I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I have for a lot of my life used that, and I wasn't sure why. That is, to try and win over rather than to try to win over. That's something that I had composition teachers trying to correct for a long time. They're like, you don't try and something, you try to do something. But that's not, in fact, the expression that he uses. It would be useless. It would have been useless in any case to try and win over the honest Radagast. I don't think, Mad Violinist, that try in this case means to test. I think it just means to attempt. But I see what you mean. Having those as parallels in any case to test and to win over in parallel, right? Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it is an interesting idea, but yeah, I doubt it. I doubt it. But anyway, I'm not sure kind of the... Oh, that was you. Wolfhound, right. Okay, great. It is a little bit. It is a little bit odd. That seems to me somewhat idiomatic, I guess. Yeah, I think it might be a regional thing. Fourth Dauntless. Yeah. But it's to try and it's not just as a way, Ardent Crayon, of doing sort of parallel verbs, but actually as specifically as an idiomatic construction with to try. Instead of saying to try to do something, to try and do something. It's not just a question of parallelism. That's a regular construction. There are a number of. I read Tolkien a lot when I was a kid, a lot, and there were a lot of like words that entered my vocabulary that like I didn't realize were unusual or archaic. And I had all the way down through, I remember I got corrected in my dissertation at one point for using a Tolkienism that I totally was taking for granted. I fought for it, and that was using the word forebode as a transitive verb. Like, he forebodes here that, this is going to happen. And they're like, yeah, you can't use the word forebode that way. And I'm like, oh, yes, you can. But anyway, yeah, JJ says, so Yoda was wrong, apparently. You can try and do at the same time. See, there you go. Anyway, okay, so Fourth Dauntless says that according to Merriam-Webster, this is a common British construction, but it's unusual in America. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, again, and doesn't surprise me that I fell into it early in life. I wonder how often, could somebody look it up? Just somebody look up the phrase "to try and" in the Lord of the Rings. I'm just interested to see if it comes up in other places. I'd be interested to see if there's a pattern there. But yeah. Anyway, I certainly don't think that this is like it's deeply significant that Gandalf uses this construction. It's just funny that Wolfhound mentioned it, just kind of flagged it as something a little bit unusual, and it just sort of. I'm just kind of thinking about it and realizing that I've been using that expression a lot of my life. Yeah. Anyway, okay, yeah. So somebody looked that up. You get 10 instances. Okay, yeah. So that it is just a common idiom there, right? Which again also clearly emphasizes that Gandalf is not. It doesn't suggest any kind of like odd sort of oratorical mode or anything by Gandalf at this point. Okay, that would have been my guess, Ron. I would have guessed that there would have been a bunch of. I couldn't think of any others off the top of my head, but I would have guessed that there were others. Anyway, okay. Well, so having started with a very fine point of usage and syntax, let's go. It's back up to and that's a good way. I think it's an excellent start to a 2-slide session. I think, and I didn't remember that, JJ. Oh, thanks for finding that. JJ found that Tolkien refers to this expression in some of his wrestlings with the Houghton Mifflin folks. So, famously, of course, when Houghton Mifflin, the American publishers, got the license to publish The Hobbit, they tried to correct dwarves to dwarfs all the way through The Hobbit, and also to correct his spelling of nasturtiums, and to correct, of course, Tolkien. What Tolkien was even more offended by than he was dwarfs, to change elven with a V-E-N to elfin with an F-I-N, which, yeah, would have driven Tolkien right off the twig. But I did not remember, JJ, that this was in there, to try to say, right, they to try and say, to try to say. So this is one of the things that the Houghton Mifflin folks tried to correct as non-standard usage, non-standard American usage in any case. Interesting. Okay, cool. Thanks, JJ, for finding that. I remembered the elfin thing, and I remembered the dwarf thing, of course. That's the most famous one. But that is interesting. I did not realize that this made that list. Cool. They tried and failed. Yes, after many fights. At Mad Violinist, this is one of the things I have to admit, I get really sentimental about this. When I published my Hobbit book with Houghton Mifflin, I got to fight with their proofreaders too. I felt so nostalgic. I almost sent them a thank you note. I'm like, thank you for screwing up my manuscript so that I could write you a letter explaining why you need to change back all the changes that you made, because it's making me messed up right now that I have to do that. And of course, what they were trying to change in my book was I was deliberately in my text when I was discussing, I was deliberately following Tolkien's usage. So ironically, they were trying to change some of the very kinds of things that they were changing in Tolkien's manuscript. Again, it was like they had a second crack at it, right, in my book. And I was like, I'm trying to use it. So this especially came up all the time. They were trying to correct the capitalizations. This was a big issue. When I was when he used capital E for elf, I was using capital E for elf. And when he would hyphenate a phrase, I would hyphenate a phrase when I referred to it. Anyway, they went through my whole manuscript and changed all those things, and I'm like, no, let's fight. This is awesome. So yeah. No, I'm not saying it's an intrinsically entertaining part of the publication process for Thoughtless, but in this particular case, right? And even if it had been a different press, I wouldn't have been as pleased. But just savoring the sort of delightful parallel of it, I felt very happy. Obviously, the proofreaders in question, Tolkien's proofreaders were obviously long since dead and in their graves, but I like to think that it was like their grandchildren or something, who were still around giving me a hard time in 2012 or 2011, I guess, was when these conversations would have been happening. Okay, interesting. Zephan says it looks like every other instance is in dialogue as would be expected. Yeah, I agree. That would be, and that's one way in which perhaps it is relevant here, that it's a little bit more characteristic of spoken dialect. I wonder. Somebody look up to try to, and see if that does appear anywhere. I wonder, Zephan, your comment is making me wonder if the narrator ever uses it another way, or if it's purely a spoken idiom. What I mean by that is, for instance, contractions, right? Very often, a character in dialogue might use contractions, especially Sam, of course, where the narrator probably would not. Emily, I don't remember off the top of my head why he insisted on nasturtium with an N. I remember reading it, but I don't remember it anymore. Needless to say, he has some philological explanation of because you challenge Tolkien on the spelling of a word, right? You're using a strange spelling of this word, and you are just asking for trouble. You are literally asking for a long lecture on, the etymology of the word and the various ways in which the various points at which and reasons for which these other modern usages entered and everything, and he's going to have a reason. Interesting. Mad Violinist found one. He would try to trap the fly and take the sting. That is a very different occasion, right? That is a very much less formal. You'd think that the Council of Elrond is formal, but not in the middle of the narrative like this. In the middle of the narrative, elevated discourse. Mad Violinist, I agree. That's why I'm that's why in my head I'm kind of associating that usage to try and associate it with like the use of contractions. Like there's nothing wrong with the use of contractions, nothing incorrect about the use of contractions, but in certain circumstances, you generally wouldn't do it. Yeah, and JJ in particular, it's not just with the use of try or trying, but the infinitive form, to try to, is specifically, because that's the where I think it's most conspicuous. It would be relevant elsewhere too, but yeah. See, like exactly, Mad Violinist. If you say when you say I tried to take the ring from Frodo, you would never say "and" there. You know, like I tried and took the ring from Frodo. I mean, Boromir's not from Texas, you know, but in the infinitive form, right? Like if somebody said, "Hey Boromir, are you going to try and take the ring from Frodo?" Right? That's the situation in which this usage would come in. JJ found another interesting. I'm afraid we shall have to try to get one pony at least. Interesting. Exactly. Yeah. Emily does sound like he's fixing to take the ring from Frodo. That's exactly what it sounds like. Yes. I'm afraid we shall have to try to get one pony at least. That's really interesting, because that's Aragorn, of course, in Bree. And, you know, that strikes me. Now, maybe I'm reading this wrong. This is my interpretation of the usage variation. But to try to sounds more formal, sort of stiffer, right? And Aragorn's a little stiff. We have to admit, Aragorn's a little stiff in those. I don't know. I mean, yeah. Well, but the two infinitives in a row, Kit, is exactly the instance, right? I mean, this is too. In any case, to try and win, to try to win over the honest Radagast is technically, I mean, that's what that expression really is. Okay, right. JJ's got one from the narrator. It was useless to try to escape over the long, uncertain path from the ford to the edge of Rivendell. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, Angrist, it is a natural drop in the second two. But again, the inconsistency that we're seeing, this is really cool. I never noticed any of this before. Now I want to look at all the instances, right? Now we need an analogy. Somebody, all right. Okay, here's what we need. Homework time. Now I want to see it. I want all of the instances of, again, to try. It's got to be to try, right? I want to stick with the infinitive. To try, and then with the twos and the ands, I want to see the instances of both. Okay, I want to see the sentences. So I want the instance. I want every sentence in which each one of those expressions is used during the Lord of the Rings. Let's be consistent. We won't include the Hobbit, where apparently it occurs because the proofreaders objected. But in the Lord of the Rings, okay, yeah. So I want to see each one. Yeah, I want to see each one. And then we'll take and look. We'll take and look next time. Maybe at the beginning of class, and we'll see if we can see some patterns here, because this is I think we're onto something here. When I thought at the beginning that it was just like, oh well, that's a British expression versus an American expression, then I thought it was like just very modestly interesting. But if Tolkien is shifting back and forth like this, I rarely believe that Tolkien is simply being inconsistent. I mean, I'm not saying Tolkien is never inconsistent, but with word usage and stuff like this, like not often. He is very, very careful about this kind of thing. He said, I forget in which of his letters he said it, but that like, you know, he said, you know, The Lord of the Rings is about like 1,000,000 words long. And, you know, I went through and carefully considered each one of them multiple times. And I believe him. I believe, and of course when Tolkien says he considers each word, you know, that means a little more to him, just given his academic specialty, than it would have meant if I'd said that same thing. Anyway, I am, yeah, so, okay. Yeah, exactly, GDC, it's kind of his whole thing, exactly. So, so if he is occasionally, using the one and then the other, I think there's got to be a pattern there. I think there's got to be a choice that in some instances he's using to, and in others he's using and. So I think we're on the cusp of a discovery here, right? This is publishable material. I bet you nobody has ever noticed this before. I think we're discovering a brand new thing. I'm not saying it's necessarily a big thing or of earth-shattering importance, but it's new. I suspect. Maybe there's a paper out there on to try to versus to try and in The Lord of the Rings, but I'll be a little surprised if there is. Okay. Anyway, whew, awesome. What a great first observation. Haven't even got to the content of the first paragraph yet. That was spectacular, Wolfhound. Thank you. And yes, Wolfhound, I agree. The very fact that he fought the publishers over it in The Hobbit does suggest that he cared. And again, at first I thought it was just that he cared because he was like, you know, I ain't gonna talk like no Yankee, right? You know, that he objected to having his language, his you know, his word choices Americanized, which he would. I mean, I don't doubt that. But yeah, the fact that he does use that, not only once, but on multiple occasions in The Lord of the Rings, certainly suggests that there's a good deal more to it than that. So, yeah, cool. Yeah, okay. Excellent. Okay, so we'll come back to that. We need more data before we can draw any real conclusions about that. So we'll come back to that when we have data. All right. So back to the top. At first I feared, as Sauruman no doubt intended, that Radagast had also fallen. Yet I had caught no hint of anything wrong in his voice or in his eye at our meeting. If I had, I should never have gone to Isengard, or I should have gone more warily. So Sauruman guessed, and he had concealed his mind and deceived his messenger. Now, we already talked to some extent about this in the sense that we had talked about the possibility of Sauruman using Radagast as a kind of test case, right? To test his deception on Radagast. Yeah, but interesting. Turambar says Radagast the Simple seems on the mark. Gandalf trusts that he can see right through him. Yeah, I was thinking about that angle on it, Turambar. Gandalf's confidence, right? I had caught no hint of anything wrong in his voice or in his eye at our meeting. Another thing I'd add to that, Turambar, is Gandalf seems to have been looking, right? I mean, he seems to have... he doesn't say, you know, and it hadn't even occurred to me to consider that Radagast had been lying to me. Right. No, he's like, I didn't, you know, I was paying attention and I didn't notice anything. And it is, I mean, you're right that it's only in retrospect that Gandalf notes this. Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think it's quite right, Turambar, to take that as Gandalf's confidence that he would surely have seen through Radagast. He's kind of marveling, right? He's marveling that how could Radagast have deceived me? Like, I can't believe Radagast deceived me. I caught no hint of anything, right? He's got a lot of time in his hands, right, up on top of the tower, and he's been reliving it a lot, right? And so as he's been going over that, he's, in retrospect, as Fourth Dauntless says, thinking it through and saying, I still can't, even in retrospect, even with hindsight, detect anything wrong in his voice or eye at our meeting. If I had detected it at the time, I would never have gone to Isengard, or I should have gone more warily. So he has had plenty of time to look for that deception, Aranas, I agree. But I also think, as we were discussing and who, Turambar, as you were adding, simple isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? That I think is one reason why he might believe that he should, or certainly at least why he feels like, in retrospect, he should have been able to detect it if Radagast had been lying to him. Because Radagast is not a liar, right? Radagast is the simple. Sauruman thinks that's a bad thing, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. There is a simplicity to Radagast, and the kind of simplicity that would lead him not to hide things like this. And he knows him from his earlier dealings with him. Gandalf knows Radagast from his earlier dealings with him, that he is simple in this way. He's straightforward. He's not gonna be duplicitous. Being simple is way better than being duplicitous, right? Those two words are almost opposite of each other, almost opposites for each other. And GDC, you're right. Gandalf is usually good at reading people. GDC is pointing to his reading Bilbo, right? Both on a number of occasions, right? GDC, I mean, from his being able to tell that Bilbo was not telling the truth, right? Badgering Bilbo until he got the truth of the ring story, to his suspicions about Bilbo even before he pushed things to the point where they got really intense, on the night of the party when he was leaving. And he does, and I agree that he detects something wrong straight off with Saruman. It's pretty early on in the conversation. Indeed, it's as soon as he comes in through the gate. Even though there is he isn't like, and then I smelled a whiff of smoke, which, kind of smelled suspicious, or, and then, I thought I glimpsed an orc out of the corner of my eye. I mean, there's nothing concrete. He just has, the whole thing feels wrong to him, feels off to him. Okay. Anyway, so that's, but yeah, I do think that he's pretty good at reading people, and I do think that Radagast's simplicity is. I do think that Radagast's simplicity is something that Gandalf would essentially trust in, right? Now, I agree, Sam, if Radagast had cooperated with Saruman, one would think that Saruman would have been a little less insulting when referring to him. Sure, yeah, I mean, he's really throwing his stooge under the bus, right? If not, he had just the wit to play the part I set him. But Sam, you also have to admit that line is a little bit suggestive, right? Well, especially if you're sitting up on top of a tower with nothing to do but think over your horrible situation for quite a long time, days or weeks. How long was he up there again, by the way? Somebody check the calendars for me. How long is Gandalf up on top of the tower? I forget off the top of my head. I like to review the dates because I know there's a good reason that I don't read The Lord of the Rings with one finger, tucked into Appendix B, and that's because I'm listening to the audiobook, so that's a lot harder. Several months. Yeah, 2 months. Right, exactly. It's a long time. a long time that he's up on the roof. And so yeah, you know, during that time, you're gonna dissect all this stuff, right? You're gonna be going over this. But I absolutely think that so I mean, would Saruman talk like that about him? Yeah, I mean, Saruman might talk like that about him in his arrogance. But yeah. Yeah, maybe praise. Interesting. Wolfhound is saying that Gandalf and Radagast both operating in good faith gives Providence a chance to intervene a bit. Well, it certainly does have that result, right? It certainly does. And it's interesting, of course, if you think about it that way. He sought me in good faith and so persuaded me. And Wolfhound, you're right to add the important bit about Gandalf's good faith as well, right? It was Gandalf went to Saruman in good, Gandalf doesn't emphasize this, right? But he goes to Saruman in good faith. And if he hadn't, he wouldn't have said to Radagast what he did, right? Had he been, he was going in a spirit of honest collaboration, assuming that here they were, all three of the Astari that have been created yet, at least all three of the Astari in the Western world, right, are here all working together as a team. So let's work together as a team. So yeah, you, Radagast, talk to all the birds and beasts that are your friends. You're great at collecting information in this way, and send all the news that you can get to Gandalf and Saruman at Orthanc, right? So, the collaboration that he sets out is a plan for collaboration among the three wizards, which is, I can't help but flash forward to Gandalf's words later on, right? He is Saruman as he should have been. That's what Saruman should have been doing all along, right? Saruman should have been sending messengers to Radagast saying, hey, Radagast, you're great at collecting information because of all your very useful bird and beast friends, right? So please talk to your bird and beast friends and find out all the information that you can and send it to Gandalf and Saruman at Orthanc, right? So that we can figure out what to do together here. Yeah. Lupilia is asking, how did Saruman get his own bird spies? We don't know. We don't know the mechanism. But I don't know. I mean, it seems to be different, but it's interesting, Lupilia, in that way. One of the first thing that comes to mind there is, he's Saruman of many colors, right? He's doing Radagast's job for him instead of collaborating with Radagast, right? He's Radagast the bird tamer, right? Not because, he's, piffing at bird taming in general, because Lupilia, as you point out, he did it, right? He tamed birds himself. He's using the Crabine as spies. But it's like Radagast is nothing but a bird tamer. That's obviously where the issue comes in, right? And yeah, there is a throwback to The Hobbit, Matt. You're right. They're crows rather than ravens. And the crows are, of course, very ill-behaved birds, right, who speak very rudely, apparently, as Balin informs us. But Brandon, you're right. As a resplendent, many-colored wizard, Corvids would be attracted, right? He'd be a sparkly object. But I doubt that's the actual mechanism he uses. But yes. But that's a really interesting follow-up argument. He doesn't take on much of the gray role since he stays in one place. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, Praise. I mean, you could maybe argue. Again, we don't have too much, especially, of course, we don't really have any information at all about what it means to be blue. But but he, but as far as we can see him taking on some of Radagast's role in the bird taming, but we don't see him. We see Gandalf trespassing onto his domain, which he legitimately is, right, in his investigation into the Ring of Power. We see Sauruman doing some of Radagast's job, right, in his bird taming, but we don't see either of the other two things. We don't see Gandalf really taking over Radagast's job, nor do we see Sauruman doing Gandalf's job, which, you'd think maybe it'd have been better off if he had. Yeah. Or I guess actually, I was just gonna say, Turambar, I was just thinking the same thing. There is the pipeweed. Yeah. I mean, you could say that by his cultivating friends in the Shire, Sauruman is, in a sense. But if he is, he's doing it wrong, right? He is not doing it well at all. And it's an interesting kind of parody, right? I mean, you think about the relationship that Gandalf has established with the Shire hobbits and compare it to the relationship that Sauruman establishes with the Shire hobbits. That I think is really interesting. He's doing it wrong, right? That is not what being the Grey, clearly. Whatever being the Grey is, and it's not 100% clear what that is. It certainly doesn't seem to be that. Bjarne Sonner, I agree that is maybe the point, that Saruman's attempts to take on others' roles are wrong-headed and doomed to failure. And not just because, he was bad at it, right? But because, exactly to emphasize the word that you used there, Bjarne Sonner, wrong-headed, right? He's doing it for the wrong reasons. He's doing it for the wrong reasons and therefore in the wrong way, right? Both his means and his ends are bad. He's doing it wrong could have been the title of the Treason of Isengard. It could. JJ, I do suspect that his relationship, Saruman's relationship with the birds, is similarly corrupt. Similarly exploitative, GDC is the word that you use about his relationship with the Shire. I would even say, even more than exploitative, corrupting, right? I mean, he was actually actively corrupting Lotho Sackville Baggins. And I suspect had a pretty bad effect on the Crabine of Dunland. I don't think they were morally improved by entering Saruman's service. Those are really interesting thoughts. So Saruman guessed, and he had concealed his mind and deceived his messenger. So Saruman is playing a pretty deep game, right? He deceives Radagast in order to deceive Gandalf. He too suspects that Gandalf suspects that he would have detected, or at least is berating himself that he should have detected, Radagast if Radagast were lying, and Saruman also anticipates that Gandalf is going to do that as well. That was the undoing of Saruman's plot, for Radagast knew no reason why he should not do as I asked, and he rode away towards Mirkwood, where he had many friends of old. And the eagles of the mountains went far and wide, and they saw many things, the gathering of wolves, and the mustering of orcs, and the 9 riders going hither and thither in the lands. And they heard news of the escape of Gollum, and they sent a messenger to bring these tidings to me. Okay. Now that's interesting. Matt is saying there's a similar sort of contest or parallel or kind of anti-parallel between Gandalf and Sauruman with the struggle over Theoden. Gandalf inspiring while Sauruman, deflates him. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, JJ, this is where Gandalf reveals he's already heard of Gollum's escape. Yes. JJ, I feel like I had something to say about that, but now I can't remember it. Or no, I can remember what it was. I just can't remember why I thought it. I can't reconstruct my thinking. And what I was thinking was that I found it hard to believe. Yeah, this is what yes, Emily, exactly. I think he's fibbing too. Yes. Okay, that was it. Thank you, Emily, for reminding me. I knew I had a reason. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Gandalf's response is, well, he's gone, right? But he may have a part to play yet. Now, that's not impossible. It's not impossible that that's consistent with him knowing it already, right? That he came in preparing to, preparing for the news, the revelation of the news that Gollum has escaped, and so he's got that as a sort of a prepared speech. I find it a little harder to believe, but it's not impossible. I mean, the more I think about it, it's not impossible. If he had known in advance, he's not the one, of course, who responds in shock. It's Aragorn, right, who has the reaction that clearly demonstrates he had not heard that news before. Yeah. I mean, Sam, I think he would have told Aragorn. He has had a couple days. But, maybe it hasn't come up yet. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I can. JJ says Aragorn was busy preparing for his date. I was gonna say, I couldn't blame Aragorn if he's got other things on his mind. When he gets back to Rivendell for the first time in who knows how long. I mean, this is the first time he's seen Arwen in years. Right? I don't think he's seen her since they met at Caren Emroth in Lothlorien. She's just recently returned from Lothlorien. No, wait, that was before she had recently returned. But still, I don't think there's any reason to think that he's seen her in quite some time. So anyway, like it's they've been away. They've been away. Was he hanging out the Do Not Disturb sign, Dan? I don't know. Maybe he was. I don't know. All I know is that I don't think we need an intimacy coordinator for this. I'm just saying. I think we could do without that. We could manage this scene without that. Yeah, and Mad Violinist, I do agree that if I were Gandalf, I could imagine putting off that conversation that started like that. And Mad Violinist says, "Hey, Aragorn, all that work you've been doing for the last several years and that horrible journey you just undertook at my behest? Yeah, remember that solo journey that you look back upon with such loathing? All the work you did to drag, but yeah, so he escaped." I could imagine Gandalf not wanting to be the one who sprung that on Aragorn, right? Oh, good, Legolas is here. Yeah, I'll just let him mention that. Besides which, let's give him a couple days with his girlfriend, right? Yeah. Okay, so now, hang on. Somebody was asking. So Flam for hang on. We're going to get to the riders in a minute. Who was asking? Turambar. Did we talk about why it would be useless to try and win over Radagast? No, we talked about the syntax, but not the sentence itself so much. I think that Gandalf's faith in Radagast is both kind of touching and kind of instructive. touching in that he has full confidence in Radagast, right? There's, when he really thinks about it, he does not think that it is likely at all that that Radagast would be won over to treachery. Not only just won over to Saruman's side, right? But because Radagast's treachery would have to be extreme, right? Not just, I'm willing to go along with Saruman under pressure, right? Not just, okay, maybe Sauron's going to win and maybe I'll subscribe to your whole ends versus means rationale here, Sauruman, right? Even if Radagast had gone that far, for him to then go a step further and say, I'm going to conspire with Saruman in order to ensnare and entrap Gandalf, that's an additional personal betrayal of Gandalf, really on top of all of the rest of it. And I think that seems to me unlikely. I can easily see why Gandalf, it's going really far, right? That's he would have to be very, very deep in Saruman's power for Sauruman to have convinced him of that. And Matt, I agree. Matt says a lot of people have a high opinion of Radagast, such as Bjorn. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So, okay. I wonder if that's one of the things that Gandalf is thinking when he uses the word treachery there, right? To win over the honest Radagast to treachery. For him to be a willing tool, to be the bait, essentially, in the trap that he knows Saruman to be setting for Gandalf's destruction, that's a big ask, as they would say, and certainly seems very unlikely that Radagast would do that. Radagast, however, was deceived himself rather than being traitorous. He knew no reason why he should not do as I asked, and he rode away towards Mirkwood, where he had many friends of old. That expression always struck me as a little bit strange. Like, I think the way that phrase, so one is, I'm always tempted to read that phrase, where he had many friends of old. I'm always tempted to kind of paraphrase that in my head, where he used to have a lot of friends. It's like, doesn't he still, what happened? Did they have a falling out? Right? Has he lost all of his old friends, like Gollum did? I don't think that's, I think that what that means, is, where he had many friends of old, like where of old he has had many friends. We don't know exactly how long Radagast has been away from Rhosgobel, Mad Violinist, but Gandalf's comment that he was never a traveler, Radagast doesn't suggest that he's turned over a new leaf, right? Oh yeah, I abandoned Rhosgobel a century ago, Gandalf. Like, that's not him. When Gandalf says you were never a traveler, his response, which is just Nazgul, right, suggests he's the implication to me is that he's like, yeah, I know, but it's an emergency because Nazgul, right? So exactly, Praise. I think the emphasis is that he has a lot of old friends there. Exactly, Praise. That he has really deep connections in the community, right, in Mirkwood. And that's where he goes right away. Like, he doesn't go to his new friends, right, if he's made new friends along the way. So Kurtzimus. Okay. All right, hang on a second, Kurtzimus. We'll come back to that in a second. But yeah, so he's returning to his center of power, right? He's returning to his networks there in Mirkwood. And what happens? The Eagles of the Mountains go far and wide. He's got good friends, right? Radagast has pull in Mirkwood. He goes right to the top, right? He goes to the Eagles of the Mountains. And someone was pointing out earlier, like, isn't Gwaihir the Windlord a rather, a rather exalted position to be sent out as a messenger? Oh, yes, absolutely yes. This is a big deal. Capital B, capital D. This is a big deal that the Eagles of the Mountains go far and wide. Remember, they don't go very far and wide. Remember how they're they'll go a little bit far but not very wide when they're taking the dwarves. Like after they, they're like, we were happy to rescue from the goblins, right, and cheat them of their fun, but we're not going to fly that far for dwarves. But for Radagast, they will go both far and wide out of friendship, right? He has many friends of old, which apparently include the Eagles of the Mountains. Now, you're right that Gwaihir also has a special relationship with Gandalf Kurtzimus, but there are two things that we learn about this, right? And this is really interesting. The kind of the history of this relationship is sort of fascinating, right? Because on the one hand, we learn in The Hobbit. So in The Hobbit, Gandalf is friends with the Eagles because he once helped their lord heal an arrow wound, right? So, okay. That explains it in Hobbit terms, right? I mean, the terms of The Hobbit. That is those kind. I mean, it's like a touch of Androcles in the Lion, right? I mean, it's a fairy tale explanation. There's no deep history, and that's largely because it's The Hobbit, right? And in The Hobbit, the eagles are not the eagles, right? I mean, they're giant birds. They're predator birds. They're not like totally admirable. They're just ginormous eagles that can talk. Just like the spiders are giant spiders that can talk, and there are giant wolves that can, well, not giant, but they're reasonably large wolves that can talk. And Morinitar asks, is the Eagle Lord from The Hobbit Gwaihir? I would think yes. Retroactively, yes. But in The Hobbit, no. No, in The Hobbit, they're just birds. And not super... I mean, they normally are just like predator scavenger birds who, in fact, are perfectly happy to steal sheep from the farmers, who and herdsmen who live next to the forest. They're not noble birds. We're told, the narrator tells us this, right? But they're friends with Gandalf because he helped them. Again, like Androcles and the Lion, right? The story about the guy who helped the wounded lion. But yeah, as Karita points out, even coin purses can talk, so the mere fact that they speak doesn't really tell you that much about them. But by the time we get to the Lord of the Rings, by the time indeed we get here, this, if I'm not mistaken, is our very first reference to the Eagles of the Mountains in the Lord of the Rings, right? I don't think we've had any. I don't think there were any other references earlier on, like in chapter 2 or anything, talking about backstory. I don't think so. I think this is the first reference to the Eagles in the Lord of the Rings. And notice they're already the Eagles of the Mountains, capital E, capital M, right? They're a big deal, right? They're a big deal. And we're going to learn more about that. So he's going to build on the old kind of fairy tale, like, oh, you once had an arrow wound and I happened across you and, was able to save you. And so now you're my friend, you large and fearsome bird, you. But praise, when did the connection between birds and Manwë enter the legendarium? Day one. One of the primary servants of Manwë was Thorondor, back when he was originally named Sorondor with an S, in the Book of Lost Tales. So yeah, Day one. Manwë was associated with the eagles. But see, Kurtzimus, that's the thing. In The Hobbit, who dared to put an arrow in an eagle, and how? A random farmer with a random bow, because they're just giant birds. They're just giant birds. Probably someone with a bow of yew, which is exactly what the eagles say. Yeah, they would shoot at us with their bows of yew. Yes, exactly. But again, you can't read The Hobbit with an assumption of continuity, because it was not written with continuity in mind. But looking back the other direction is perfectly fair. Yeah. Anyway, so I yeah. Gilgoady is liking the pun. You've got the stealing of the sheep and the bows of yew. The yew pun. It's pretty good. Anyway, the eagle. Okay, there is the brief glimpse of the eagle in the dream. Okay, brief glimpse of the eagle in the dream. But doesn't he just see like wings or something? I mean, it's not. He doesn't refer to him as like, and it was like one of the eagles or something like that. It's just a glimpse, as I recall. Yeah, but praise. We'll get there. We'll get there when we get that. We haven't gotten that word yet, but when we do, we'll definitely do that. Okay. All right. So, the Eagles of the Mountains, capital E, capital M, it's a big deal, right? So Radagast's friendship, he has friends in high places, right? And it shows both how seriously Radagast is taking this request, that he's gonna, call in a favor from the Eagles of the Mountains. And it shows that the Eagles of the Mountains also take this request very seriously. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you, JJ. JJ gave me the passage. The figure lifted his arms, and a light flashed from the staff that he wielded. A mighty eagle swept down and bore him away. Okay, so we do get a reference to a mighty eagle, lowercase e, but that's all we get. Okay, good. So that one flash in the dream is all we get. Okay. Lost my train of thought though. Okay, Eagles of the Mountains. So yeah, we'll talk about the Eagles more. We'll get more Eagles. For now, let's content ourselves with the observation that what Radagast does in fulfillment of his promise to Gandalf, or in response, I should say, to Gandalf's request, as we don't hear him make a promise, is that he's gonna call in favors from friends, and those friends are, in fact, the Eagles of the Mountain. We'll come back to more about the Eagles and Gandalf and Gwaihir and stuff. We'll have time when we actually get to him, Gwaihir, that is, in a little bit. Okay, he does say, I will do that. There you go. Good, Mad Violent, right? So he did, that's sort of a promise, right? He did say he would. Okay. They saw many things. The gathering of wolves, the mustering of orcs, and the 9 riders going hither and thither in the lands. And they heard news of the escape of Gollum. And they sent a messenger to bring these tidings to me. Now, Flamifer, I want to get back to the question of the 9 riders and they're going hither and thither in the land. That's the phrase. It's that they spotted the 9 riders is not surprising. Or actually, maybe it's a little bit surprising, since presumably the majority of the hithering and thithering that the 9 riders are doing is at night, which you would think would be hard to spot by eagle. But nevertheless, the eagles do see, at the very least, clear evidence of the going hither and thither of the 9 riders. Yes, Brandon, I agree with you. Brandon Minnick says the 9 riders going hither and thither really implies they don't know where they're going when they're looking for the Shire. That is absolutely the conclusion I draw from that too. I think that shows really clearly that the Black Riders they're not just like pounding up the Greenway, right, straight towards the Shire. They don't know where they're going. They're going all through the lands, right? Yeah, Trifle, I don't know what the Black Riders do during the day. Camping, hiding under a rock. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they must rest their horses sometimes, right? Or else the horses would be dead. And they are real horses, as Aragorn insists. So these are not wraith horses. Yeah, I think... oh, yeah. And so, Ron, I'm not suggesting they're going aimlessly. But the hither and thither... the hither and thither definitely does suggest to me like multiple directions that they're going. They're sort of wandering around again, not aimlessly, but they don't know where their destination is. Right? They are hunting for the Shire. They're not traveling to the Shire, and that by itself. Exactly, not aimlessly, just fruitlessly. Exactly. And that by itself, I wonder, would be news. Of course, Gandalf doesn't receive the news till he's already been rescued, right? But which would, I think, have given Gandalf some comfort, right? Because you'll remember that he said that his fear was, premised on the power of Sauron, which is still less than fear makes it. Remember his very first thought. His very first thought when he heard that the Nazgul were come, right? That the Nazgul had left Mordor, or left Minas Morgul anyway, and were come into the north to hunt for the ring. He's immediately imagining meeting the Witch King with all the other 8 Nazgul with him. He's imagining pretty much a worst case scenario, right? Oh my gosh, all 9 Nazgul all together are going to come like straight for the Shire and knock on the door of Bag End, and I'm not going to be able to defend Frodo if they do that. That's kind of where his mind goes right away. But as the event proves, it's not. He's up there. If those dates, then I forget who it was who gave them to me, but if those dates that you gave me are correct, he's up there for 2 months. 2 months. On top of the tower. I mean, just imagine 2 months of worrying about what the Nazgul have a 2-month head start on him to get to the Shire. And, maybe so like the first few days, he's like, well, okay, maybe, if I can think of something and somehow get out of this, maybe I can still be in time to warn Frodo. By the time that 3 weeks have passed, 4 weeks have passed, 6 weeks have passed, 8 weeks have passed. He's got to be thinking like, yeah, if there was hope before, there's no hope now, right? There's no way that the Nazgul would not have found the Shire already. And yet, both his hope and his fear cheated him. The unreliability of Butterbur being perhaps the more predictable of the two. But yeah. And yeah, Flamifer, I don't know what to do with some of Tolkien's retcons. You're right, there are multiple retcons, and they are contradictory. He came up with different versions, and it's not clear like what he was settling on there. That tells me, Flamifer, that section... Unfinished Tales, of course, is what Flamifer is referring to. In Unfinished Tales, in the section of Unfinished Tales called The Hunt for the Ring, Christopher gives us a bunch of Tolkien speculations about the motions, the movements, rather, of the Nazgul. And what I would emphasize here is, first of all, like general comment, Unfinished Tales is a really uneven work. And Christopher tries to, caution about this in his introduction. But Christopher's introductions are a little bit boring and a lot of people don't read them. So I don't know. But anyway, what he says in the introduction is that these stories are all unfinished, but they're not all unfinished in the same degree, to the same extent, or even in the same way. There are some stories which, like, he starts and just breaks off, and it's unfinished for that reason, like the terrible, horrible, tragic, unfinished state of Tuor and the longer, later Tuor story. That's the one that's unfinished, just in the sense that it breaks off. There are other things that simply means, we're calling them unfinished, simply means like Tolkien was, like, he had a bunch of ideas about this and never finished resolving on what the story really was, right? And there, you're getting a lot of really interesting information, but it's hard to draw conclusions from it, because it's quite possible, even quite likely, that Tolkien would have ended up chucking every single one of those theories out the window, right? So you can't really kind of rest on any one of those things. You can't ever really rest on any one of those things as even like a definitive what if, right? Just like that Tolkien played with this particular way of kind of resolving the sequence. There we go. Frumius Boojum does point out that we're told that the Ward of the Eagles could see a rabbit moving on the ground a mile below, even in the moonlight. So I guess if the moon's out, Frumius Boojum, that he could still spot the Nazgul going hither and thither. And of course, hither and thither just means here and there, like this way and that way, right? So yes, that's why, as I see people referring to the come hither look, right? That means to come this way when you're trying to attract someone to you, as opposed to the go thither look, which is to try to repel people away. I would strongly recommend, by the way, to anyone who does try to apply in any situation a come hither look, that you arm yourself with a substantial quantity of go thither as well. In fact, really, it's a prerequisite, I would say. You want to first work on your go thither, then you can try to develop your come hither. Just a little advice I would give. But anyway, yeah. So that's what those words mean. Okay. So Brandon says, when did the Nazgul first encounter a hobbit so that they might know what one looked like, and that they didn't look like Gollum? Yeah. I mean, when did they meet one? Bree, maybe? I mean, that's the first time they probably would have gotten a chance to see one. All they would have known was that they're halflings. And yeah, it's JJ. I agree. JJ says, will they even see in that sense? No, I mean, they don't need a policeman's sketch of but I doubt that in Mordor, they had a sketch artist interviewing Gollum, right, to make a composite sketch of Bilbo. Like, I doubt that that's how they equipped them, right? What I could see, right, is the Nazgul interviewing Gollum and being like, tell us more about how he smelled, right? Yeah, and Musical, you're right. They don't know that Gollum is related to hobbits. Apart from Gollum's stature, there's no other obvious evidence, and Gandalf is the one who's figured that out. Yeah, Evil Dr. Cannon was also thinking that it's more relevant for them to know what hobbits smell like. Yeah. Bjarnasonar, it seems to me like it would be a good comedy sketch, really, right? For Gollum to be trying to be giving a description of Bilbo, right? And then like a police sketch artist trying to draw from Gollum's description, and then showing the picture at the end. Actually, that kind of sounds like a really funny comedy sketch. Actually, come to think of it, yeah. Anyway, so yeah. Frumius Boojum is imagining at the end of the interview saying, and he's invisible. All right, so yeah. Well, I guess that makes the sketching a lot easier, doesn't it? Yeah. Exactly. Right. Praise. Exactly. They have to show the black horses the police sketch. That's totally what they'd have to do. Yes. For the last time, I don't know how to draw Trixie. Yeah. That's it. So Tekelvik, no, Gollum never did journey to the Shire. He was probably setting out for the Shire, but took a disastrous side trip by Mordor, and never got there. He did make it as far as Dale, and so learned about the Shire. That's where he would have heard the name. But yeah. Okay. But again, the point is the Black Riders not being efficient. Hither and thither clearly suggests to me that they are not being, they're wandering about in their search. Again, when Gandalf does finally get this, I think that news would give him hope. And one of the reasons why he's like, find me a way. What is the fastest way in which I can make a beeline for the north? Because maybe if they're going hither and thither, maybe there's an outside chance that I can get there first. And he almost does, right? He almost does. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. Slide 2, because we're early tonight. We're so early. Oh my goodness. Okay. So it was that when summer waned, there came a night of moon, and Gwaihir the Windlord, swiftest of the great eagles, capital G, capital E, came unlooked for to Orthanc, and he found me standing on the pinnacle. Then I spoke to him, and he bore me away before Sauruman was aware. I was far from Isengard ere the wolves and orcs issued from the gate to pursue me. How far can you bear me? I said to Gwaihir. Many leagues, said he, but not to the ends of the earth. I was sent to bear tidings, not burdens. Then I must have a steed on land, I said, and a steed surpassingly swift, for I have never had such need of haste before. Then I will bear you to Edoras, where the Lord of Rohan sits in his halls, he said, for that is not very far off. And I was glad, for in the Riddermark of Rohan the Rohirrim, the horse lords, dwell, and there are no horses like those that are bred in that great vale between the misty mountains and the white. Are the men of Rohan still to be trusted, do you think? I said to Gwaihir, for the treason of Sauruman had shaken my faith. They pay a tribute of horses, he answered, and send many yearly to Mordor, or so it is said. But they are not yet under the yoke. But if Sauruman has become evil, as you say, then their doom cannot be long delayed. Okay. All right. Right. Kurita says, sent to bear tidings, not burdens, is funny. Are eagles funny? I think, yeah. Wolfhound was just saying the same thing, Kurita. It sounds a little snarky, doesn't it? Many leagues, but not to the ends of the earth, right? I mean, okay, right? Like, can we guess a middle range here? How close to the edge of the earth are you willing to go, in fact? Yeah. And musical, yeah, I agree. The eagles in The Hobbit are a bit funny too. Like the one who says that Bilbo looks rather like a rabbit, right? Yeah, I mean, I agree. The eagles definitely have a sense of humor. Absolutely. Yeah, Mad Violinist, I agree. If you're an eagle of Manway, the ends of the earth means something a little different. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Yes. Good, right. Yeah, no, Turambar, I think it's what could mean one of three things, right? The ends of the earth could mean a poetic description for a very long way. It could mean to the coast, right? Or it could mean, to the edge of the outer night. So, that's, there's some options here. Exactly. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, so we'll get to the tributes question. Wow, lots of comments and questions here. Does Gwaihir actually speak the common tongue, or is Gandalf speaking eagle tongue? Well, okay, again, you can't judge by the hobbits because everybody speaks the common tongue except wargs, apparently. Spiders, yes. Wargs, no. Wargs, that doesn't mean, by the way, that wargs are lesser. They're cooler because they have their own language, right? Which, of course, in Tolkien's world means you're cool, right? But anyway, never mind. We're not talking about the Hobbit. Okay. I think it's I do think so. Yeah. On that note, could the eagles travel the straight road? I'm going with yes, but and is that what he means? Right? Not to the end of the world. I can't take you to Valinor if that's what you mean, right? I got stuff to do. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's start at the beginning. When summer waned, there came a night of moon. By the way, what an understated way for Gandalf to allude to how very long he has been up on that roof, right? So it was that when summer waned, the entire summer he has been, from just after midsummer, however it is between Midsummer's Day, which is when he set off, and he took some time to get down there to Orthanc, but it's now come to the waning of summer. There came a night of moon, and Gwaihir the Wind Lord, swiftest of the great eagles, came unlooked for to Orthanc, and he found me standing on the pinnacle. Okay, Praise. Now we can talk about how cool the title The Wind Lord is, right? And there is no question in my the title The Wind Lord, of course, like intrinsically cool, right? I mean, that is an awesome title, no question. The Wind Lord is fantastic, but it's also pretty sending some pretty clear signals, I think, right? I mean, it's it has a few different potential obvious meanings, right? On the one hand, it means that he is it's like king, right? The king of the king who flies in the sky, right, is one sort of potential meaning of Windlord, right? It's just like that's just kind of the title that eagle kings use because, if you're an eagle lord, that's what you're going to be called. It also suggests that he's extremely fast, right? That he is the Lord of the Winds in this sense, right? That he's as fast as the winds, right? Kurtzimit says he wonders if Gwaihir is just the fastest. He is the fastest. Gandalf acknowledges that he's the fastest. He says to Gwaihir at Mount Doom, right? He's like, you come and like the second and third fastest of the other eagles, and let's go. So that's another obvious, like his speed, acknowledging his speed is another reason for it. But yeah, Sam, I agree. I mean, Sam says, I can't help but hear it as emissary of Manwë. Yeah. I mean, it's yes. It is possible. Turambar is asking, do I think Gwaihir actually has some power over the wind? Can't rule it out. Wind Lord in that sense, right? Yeah, exactly. Valor, he says, implies that he's master of the wind rather than merely a rider of air currents. Yes. I think that's very very possible, right? But yeah, the connection to Manwë, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to avoid. If you know the Legendarium at all, it's hard to avoid, right? And again, the way that he uses the phrase great eagles, swiftest of the great eagles here, right? He's the swiftest of the great. He's not just a big eagle, right? He's not just one of the eagles of the, he's one of the great eagles, capital G, capital E. This is a different species. Now, we don't know what that means exactly, right? We don't, I mean, if you've read the Silmarillion, you will know about Thorondor and the other great eagles. You will have known about the race of great eagles, that lives in, that originally lived, well, depending on which version you're reading, but probably in the published Silmarillion anyway, live up around Gondolin, those are the great eagles that we're talking about. It is that race of eagles. And it's very clear. They're the Mearis of the birds at the very least. Yeah. Anyway, so that Tolkien is invoking that here seems to me very clear. The meaning of what exactly he's invoking would not be very clear to a people who had never had the Silmarillion published, right? So, I mean, if all you knew was The Hobbit, you'd recognize the eagles. But I think he's already recontextualizing them here. The eagles of the mountains, what he said before, okay, that recalls them from The Hobbit, right? So we've read The Hobbit, we'll remember the eagles of the mountains, right? But Gwaihir, the Wind Lord, swiftest of the great eagles, we're in a slightly different place. And again, especially, and I agree, Michael Tobias says, it feels like for a first-time reader, the effect is how it conveys sovereignty. Yes, yeah, a very different quality of majesty, Michael, than we see certainly in The Hobbit, right? Certainly in The Hobbit. And that's the only context we have as readers, right? Again, if we know the Silmarillion, we know the greater context, and we have reason to believe that this is one of the great eagles. That this is one of the species of eagles who are the emissaries of Manwë in Middle Earth. So yeah, absolutely. And this then brings us to his relationship with Gandalf. He found me standing on the pinnacle. He bore me away before Sauruman was aware. And then the wolves and orcs issue from the gate to pursue him. Why does he do that? Well, what else can he do, right? I mean, he's just kind of, it's too late, right? He knows it's too late. Gandalf is gone and he's not going to catch him again. But he has to do something, right? I mean, this is, without Gandalf, he has no prisoner. He failed to get any clear lead on the ring. He just this was his move. This was his big move all along. And he's blown it, right? I mean, so what can he do? Really low odds of catching Gandalf flying away on the eagle with orcs and wolves, but what else has he got? Nothing. He's got nothing else. Dolores Stroke says, is this a James Bond villain situation? Why not kill Why not kill Gandalf? We talked about this before. On the front end, it makes sense. He is his only lead, right? I mean, the crucial thing. Saruman only wins, and he knows this. He only wins if he gets the ring. And Gandalf is his only lead, his only and best lead on the ring and the location of the ring. So to kill him out of hand right away, now, like with hindsight, if he knew that Gandalf was going to escape if he just kept him indefinitely, then, I mean, and by the way, the fact that he kept him for 2 months shows he wasn't wrong to believe that he could hold Gandalf prisoner indefinitely. I mean, 2 months is kind of indefinite, right? Gandalf was plainly not escaping under his own power. So he wasn't wrong. Saruman wasn't wrong to think that he could keep him indefinitely. He just didn't predict giant eagle, right? Maybe Tekelvik. Yeah, Tekelvik says, did Saruman know there was an eagle? Or only that Gandalf had vanished from the roof? He may hope that Gandalf managed to climb down and sneak out and can be tracked and caught. Maybe. Maybe. Can anyone kill Gandalf? Oh yeah. No, Gandalf's very killable. Very killable. Gandalf's killable, pretty sure, by all normal means. You can kill Gandalf in any number. You can kill him with the lead pipe. You can kill him with the revolver. No, like seriously, you can kill Gandalf. Right, the problem, making him stay dead, I agree. That's a different issue, right? You know, how do you prevent the resurrection? That's the real question. I mean, you know, who saw that coming? But yeah, killing him, no problem. I mean, he almost died in The Hobbit. Gandalf he believes he is going to die in the Wolf Ring. Yeah. Unless you're a Balrog, well, I mean, you know, Gandalf's got a shot at killing you too, right? You know, I'm not saying he's going down easy. I'm just saying he's killable. You know, that's all. Yeah. So, okay. Couple things here. Glorfinthalion says, presumably he would not have been against using torture. Yeah, we talked about this some couple episodes ago. He is. He doesn't have to use thumb screws. He is torturing Gandalf right now. He's been for 2 months. Absolutely. It's true, if he's killed, his spirit would return to Mandos and spill the beans. Gandalf's spirit would spill the beans. Yeah, but I mean, seriously, are those beans unspilled? Right? Valar don't know what's going on. Saruman pulling the wool over the eyes, the collective eyes of Valinor here. I doubt it. They're not stepping in like they don't step in. You know, they're not just going to step in and stump him. They don't play like that, right? I mean, he's making his choice. They can do that. The wizards can do that, right? They were given mortal forms. They were incarnate in mortal bodies. They can make their own choices. And if they make bad choices, there are going to be consequences for those choices, as Saruman will learn, right? But I don't think the Valar are going to swoop in. Yeah. So let's see. Gatron says it makes one wonder if Aule is busy explaining why yet another of his followers has gone to the dark side. Hey, like, it's being a sub-creator, there's real risk, right? I mean, with great power comes great responsibility, man. It's true. All the bad guys are, you know, sub-creators. Like, it's you know, Aule's is a dangerous job. It is. I I mean, it's a great job too. I mean, there's no accident that the greatest and simultaneously those who fall furthest, right, are in that category. But anyway, okay. So, where was I? So the wolves and orcs, did they see him? The word pursue is the thing that gets me there. Issued from the gate to pursue me, not hunt for me, right? Not search for me, but pursue me. That's the thing that leads me to believe that he was spotted. That somebody sees Gandalf and Gwaihir flying away, and Saruman is like, what? And, quick, chase after him. Because, he doesn't know. Maybe he knows that Gwaihir is unlikely to take him to the ends of the earth. Maybe he's like, well, how far to the Carrick from here? Like if the eagle's pattern is just to take him a little ways off and drop him, they could still get him in the wilderness, right? Maybe. But again, is sending out orcs and wolves from the gates to chase after him kind of a Hail Mary on Saruman's part? Yeah, it is. Not that that's an appropriate metaphor to use under the circumstances, but yeah, it's a desperation move. It's a desperation move. Yeah, Trifle. That's a good point. If Frodo's dream is accurate, Gandalf gives Gwaihir a landing beacon, right? The light from his staff, which Frodo sees in his dream. Someone would presumably have seen that. Yeah, and Saruman might have been aware of it. Gandalf might have written, Gandalf is here in letters that everybody could read, to the mouths of Anduin when he did that, right? Calling down Gwaihir. So Saruman could well have bolted up from whatever he was, doing in his study or laboratory, at the time, as soon as Gandalf did that, and, dashed outside. So he does bear him away before Saruman is aware. Yeah, so Saruman doesn't catch him on the roof. But that doesn't mean Ron, that they don't see him flying, that he doesn't see him flying away, right? And therefore pursue him with the wolves and orcs. Again, I think it's desperate. I don't think he does expect to, but he knows. It's his only hope, right? Really low percentage chance that those orcs and wolves are going to come back with Gandalf again. But what else can he do? Nothing, right? He's got nothing else he can possibly do. Okay. Yeah, Gwaihir might have seen the orcs outside and assumed Saruman was under siege. I'm sure he did see the orcs outside, and he may well have assumed that Saruman was under siege. Oh, you're saying that Saruman didn't notice the landing beacon. Yeah, well, again, my suggestion there is if Gandalf does seem to suggest that other people can detect when he puts forth power, right? He says that in the Pass of Carothras. So I am assuming that, again, I'm imagining Saruman is downstairs reading a book or training half-orc children or whatever it is that he's doing, right? And he's in the middle of some, hideous, horrible thing that he's doing, whatever it is that day on his agenda, and all of a sudden, like, Gandalf puts forth his power and his staff, and so I'm imagining Saruman being like, what, what's going on up there, right? And then maybe he runs to a window or something, right, and sees the eagle flying away with Gandalf. So that would still fit to me the description of he bore me away before Saruman was aware, right? Saruman was not aware of what was happening before Gwaihir and Gandalf were off the roof, right, and away. But then he would still see him and chase and send orcs and wolves after him. Reading books to orc children, maybe literacy classes for all of the goblin boys and girls, right? Not the boy and girl orcs. But the boy and girl goblins, but the goblin boys and girls. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Yeah, we'll get to Gwaihir's intel on Rohan. Maybe. We might save that for next time. But anyway, okay. Yeah, in fact, we will. We'll do that next time. But tonight, let's finish up with let's go back to the ends of the earth. That seems a good place to end. He says, how far can you bear me? Many leagues, but not to the ends of the earth. I was sent to bear tidings, not burdens. The snark, I agree with the snark. Eagles do seem to be funny. But the thing that I would point out here, the thing that I would emphasize, Gwaihir and Gandalf's relationships, Gwaihir and Gandalf's relationship, I should say, has not progressed, right? This is going to be, we are going to get a marked contrast to this statement, right? Do you remember what Gwaihir says to Gandalf at the Black Gate, right? At the Black Gate, when Gandalf is being super polite and saying, twice have you borne me, my friend, and the third time, but, he has this long preamble, like, would you mind awfully carrying me again, right? And Gwaihir's response at the Black Gate is, I would bear you whithersoever you will, even if you were made of stone, right? No limitations, right? Ends of the earth, you got it, right? Name it, and I'll take you there. I'm asking you to remember ahead, Anchorist, right? Remember ahead to that, right? That's not what we get from Gwaihir here. That's not what Gwaihir gives Gandalf. I mean, again, you'd think, in some ways, you'd think like, hey, dude, like, emergency, can I, call in every favor I've got left? Can we, take it up with Radagast later? He'll tell you this is important. I really, really need a fast ride to the Shire. Like, global emergency, end of the world coming. If you, let's please just take me to the Shire. It's not all that far, right? I mean, okay, it's kind of far, but like, you're an eagle, you're going to handle it, right? We can take it in stages. It's okay. Yeah. I agree. It's Gandalf the White asking later on. I agree. But that's my point. In part, that's my point. Gwaihir and Gandalf are on different footings then. Yeah. So, exactly, Brandon, the tidings are the things that he observed. Like all the tidings that he's come to send is like, yeah, I came to tell you, like, hither and Gollum escaped, Black Riders going hither and thither, that's the news, right? That's his mission, and he's headed back to the Eagles, headed back to Radagast. It's not okay. You can't just hijack me as a steed, Gandalf, right? That's not, I'm not going to do it, right? I'm not going to do it. Interesting the limitations of that. Now, we don't hear any more about the arrow wound, right? We don't hear any more about the arrow wound. Notice we also don't, notice that we also don't hear much about the gold collars, right, that they got from the dwarves. Maybe he's still wearing his bling, I guess, but that's not what's important here. Yeah, Matt, we will come to that next time, I think. We'll do the Rohirrim stuff next time. In paragraph 1, we do get what seems to me an indication that Tolkien I think it's perfectly clear that Tolkien is now basically saying, yes, the eagles of the Misty Mountains are the great eagles of Manwë. No question, right? Bonus. And this was oh man, remember, some of you will remember the day we talked about this. Some of you will remember the day that we talked about this in, was it the Lost Road discussion in Mythgard Academy? Wow, that was like, I remember my mind being blown that day because I never noticed this before. The eagles that pick up Beren and Luthien are Landreval and Meneldor. Like, they're the same eagles. The same eagles who pick up Frodo and Sam on Mount Doom by name are the same eagles that picked up Beren and Luthien at the gates of Angband when they were coming out with the Silmaril, or, well, without the Silmaril, and without Beren's hand. But, you know, and no, the eagles don't recycle names. They were the same ones, right? So it is very, very clear to me that the great eagles in the Lord of the Rings, that Tolkien is absolutely identifying them. I mean, again, they are literally the same birds. Some of the characters are still around from back then. Now, it raises the question, where's Thorondor, right? Don't know. He doesn't make an appearance, right? Has he retired? I don't know. You know, was Numenor his last gig? I don't know what happened there. Do I think that Gwaihir is just a renaming of Thorondor? It's conceivable, Dan. It's conceivable. You know, I don't know. Yeah, Matt points out there's a tradition in Celtic myth of immortal or very, very long-lived eagles. Yeah. So no, I mean, these are, so again, in that paragraph between the title, The Wind Lord, which, you know, yeah, it's just very eagerly, but I think it clearly invokes Manwë, especially when coupled with the phrase "the great eagles," capital G, capital E. So in that paragraph, we get this established, right? He is the Wind Lord, the swiftest. I'm going to go ahead and think greatest of the great eagles, but then we have him drawing limits with Gandalf, right? Oh, Gandalf, you have an important mission? Yeah, whatever. You're on your own, man. This is not my remit. Sorry, dude. Right? I'm putting you down. I can't carry you to the ends of the earth. What do we look like? A taxi service? Right? Forget about it. That's Gwaihir's answer, right? So it's really easy to overstate. That's what I mean. To overstate the link between Gwaihir and Gandalf. It's not yet. They don't have it yet, right? Gwaihir doesn't work for Gandalf. Gwaihir is willing to work with him, right? I mean, I can imagine a brief kind of conversation that happens between them, right? Gwaihir lands and he's like, hey, is there some kind of crisis? This place is surrounded by orcs. And Gandalf is like, crisis? Yes. Let me sum up, right? Let's go. So, you know, he doesn't mind, right? He doesn't mind. But he, that is, Gwaihir doesn't seem to mind helping Gandalf to escape. But yeah, Wolfhound, exactly. They are he's condescending to do this. He's got stuff to do. He has a job, okay? And he's willing to work with Radagast. This, I think, reflects well upon Radagast. I really do. I think the fact that Gwaihir is involved at all, that he came to bring tidings, I was sent to bear tidings. I mean, that's a humble statement by Gwaihir, right? He's like, I'm a messenger here, right? I was sent by somebody else. Radagast sent me to bear tidings, but not burdens, right? I can't, you know, your problem just isn't my, oops. Oops. Your problem is not my, I accidentally undid it there. Hang on, sir. Your problem isn't necessarily my problem, Gandalf. I got things to do. Yeah. So Yeah, Brandon says Sauruman doesn't even seem to notice that he lives next to the great eagles, but of course, as Kurtzimus points out, he also seemed to forget that he lived right next to Treebeard too. So yeah, overlooking other creatures, who, and focusing too much on himself. Yeah, that does seem to be a pattern there. So yeah, what's Gwaihir's job? Right? Why is it that he won't? Remember, again, this is recalling the business with the bows of yew and the sheep stealing and stuff that we were talking about from The Hobbit. It's the same conversation, right? In The Hobbit, we're given a very naturalistic explanation. Why won't they carry them further? Because they don't want to get close to the steadings of the woodmen, because the woodmen will shoot them. And that they're not done with that, right? So they're like, we're not risking our lives for dwarves. We'll put you down here. It's safe from here, and then we're gone, right? That's as far as we're willing to go. Anyway, so they have that same conversation, except instead of giving that naturalistic explanation, we will not go any further than this, because if we do, the people with bows will shoot us. Instead of giving any such kind of explanation, Gwaihir gives no explanation at all. Just simply, no. I can bear you many leagues. I'm willing to do that, right? You're in a tight place. I see that. But I don't... I can't bear you to the ends of the earth. And even the hobbitry in that, even the snarkiness of that statement, it suggests he's being kind of playful with Gandalf, right? In general, snarky comments like that are a good sign of friendship. But still, he means it, right? He's not going to carry him to the ends of the earth. It raises the question, what is his business? Let's see, somebody was asking, I forget who it was. Somebody was saying, why they live nearby. Why haven't they noticed that there's a bunch of orcs there? Well, again, he's not been letting them out in Rohan. They're not that close. I mean, it's just the Misty Mountains, but the Misty Mountains go on for a long ways. The Eagle's Eyries are pretty far from here. He did have to be sent. He didn't just see this, but and yeah, absolutely, Wolfhound. This is clearly Providence again. It's a eucatastrophe. It's a eucatastrophe for Gandalf. Gwaihir wasn't looking for Gandalf. He didn't come here expecting to rescue Gandalf. It is super tempting to speculate about what Gwaihir's day job is, right? Like, what's his job? What's he supposed to be doing? It's super tempting. Is he reporting back to Manwë? Does Manwë need his help? Right? Doesn't Manwë just have to sit in his seat with Varda beside him and then he can see everywhere? So, like, he doesn't actually need spies? Messengers? Right? His business is to eat ewes and avoid ewes? Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what his job is. They're the great eagles. They are, in some sense, the emissaries of Manwë. But what does that mean, right? I mean, when I think back to the Legendarium, we only see the eagles act on a couple of occasions. And rescuing people, there's precedent for that, right? This is kind of on their resume, rescuing people. Right. I mean, to this point, I mean, not even remembering ahead to Frodo and Sam, but, they rescued Beren and Luthien, as I said. They rescued Fingolfin. Well, Fingolfin's corpse, but still, kind of rescued Fingolfin. They rescued Fingolfin's corpse. They rescued Beren and Luthien. They rescued Maedhros and Fingon, right? So, getting people out of sticky situations is a thing that they do. But Glorfindel's corpse as well. Yep, you're right. You're right. Corpse retrieval. So rescuing prisoners or rescuing people who either have been captured or are about to be captured or are trying to get loose, that's on their resume. Corpse retrieval, prominent corpse retrieval, that's on their resume as well. We have, of course, the Eagle's intervention into the Battle of the Five Armies, which is, coming in at the end of battles, Kurtzimus, right? Yeah, they have two of those on their resume. They've got the Battle of Five Armies, and of course, the end of the War of Wrath, with Ancalagon the Black and the other winged dragons. So, aerial combat, but yeah, climactic conclusions to battles. Yes. And the battle before the Black Gates. Yeah, no, I was thinking up to this time, Turambar, but sure, we will see them carry on doing those two things. That's pretty much it, right? That's pretty much the I mean, think about it. It's all they've ever done. Intervene dramatically at the end of battles, rescue folks, and corpse retrieval. I think it's it. So yeah. Oh, okay, Brandon. Good point. Numenor. Good point. Well, yeah. See, the eagles of the Lords of the West are upon us. Those were like clouds. I don't think those were literally eagles. Did the literal eagles play a role in Numenor? I think it's possible. I mean, so we might have to put, like, with a sideline in serving as an ominous symbol of doom, right? They were spiritual eagles, Kurtzimus. They were definitely spiritual eagles. There might have been literal eagles too, but they were spiritual eagles sent to Numenor. Of that, I think there can be no possible question. They will announce the victory to the people in Minas Tirith, Zeph, and I think that's actually the weirdest thing the Eagles ever do. I can't wait to get there. It'll be a little while, but when we get there, that's going to be a lot of fun because that is super uncharacteristic Eagle behavior. I mean, do we see that anywhere else? Yeah. Anyway, so. Yeah, exactly. The JJ, the passage you just quoted from the Akalabeth is that's where it's clearly a great cloud in the shape of an eagle. Yeah, like there are clearly spiritual eagles sent to Numenor. Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah. It is time for the field trip. We'll see if you have, but again, all I will end with is the last thing is we don't know. And I'd be careful assuming. Are they the spies of Manwë? Are they keeping lookouts for Manwë? We don't know. Are they messengers from Manwë? We don't know. We don't know Gwaihir's marching orders or flying orders or whatever. We just don't know. Are they Maiar? Yeah. I think maybe. No idea. No idea. They're flapping orders. It sounds pretty undignified, frankly. But But anyhow, okay. So just keep this in mind. We'll see Gwaihir again, of course, and we'll get more data, both about Gwaihir in particular, especially about Gwaihir in particular, but also about the Great Eagles in general. So we'll have the opportunity to revisit this as we move forward. Next time we will start with, so we didn't quite do 2 slides, but we did a good slide and a half, like a solid slide and a half there tonight. Maybe 1.75. I'm not sure I'd go past 1.6 slides, but anyway, there we go. So we'll come back to both the question of the Rohirrim and the tribute to Mordor, and interestingly, the question of Gwaihir's information on this subject. So we'll get there next time. So I'm going to say good night to everybody on Twitter. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for your comments there this evening. And we will move to the field trip. So feel free to join us at twitch.tv/SignumU. All right.
Good evening, sir.
Oop, hit the wrong button there.
Oh, no.
Got rid of the window instead of maximizing it. Okay, there we go.
And if I had a nickel.
Yeah. There we go. Hang on. Having all kinds of issues here. There we go. All right. Gotta move my phone out of the way. All right, here we are. Okay. All right. And I can now... So we're headed back out to Hultvis.
Yep.
I can now milestone there like a boss. All right.
I think some of our friends over here are falling asleep.
Yeah. Wake up, it's field trip time. Brandon, I agree with you. The Númenóreans crying out the eagles are coming and being afraid because they are on the wrong side of the Valar is a really great touch. Yeah, it is, isn't it? I love that. Oh no, the eagles are coming. You know, it's like when you're terrified, when you're crying out the eagles are coming, like that's when you know you really need to re-examine your life. You know, like if you've never had anything that led you to suspect that before that time, you know, now's the time to really.
Oh yeah. Oh really, man, it's raining and foggy.
It sure is. This is like worst field trip weather possible.
Yeah.
I guess it could be.
You can turn off precipitation effects. It helps.
Oh. Well, but it's, you know, maybe it'll be suitably atmospheric. I will do that if we're trying to see something and can't. Otherwise, you know, maybe it'll just be a fitting atmosphere.
I'm in Vegbar. Am I supposed to be Hultvis?
You're in Vegbar? Where's that?
I think that's the place before.
The place that killed us.
Before Hultvis.
Really?
Yeah, the place with the invisible guards.
Oh, right. Vegbar, yeah. Yeah, with the invisible guards and the attacking bears.
Ghost Town.
Yeah, that's a...
Alright, there we go.
That's a memorable spot. Didn't remember the name, but I'll never forget that place.
It made for an awesome clip, though.
Oh, man, it was fantastic.
It did. Yeah, it did. Alright.
It would have been even funnier, except for the fact that it took me a long time to figure out that something was even wrong because I was so used to being attacked by everything that passed by that I was a little surprised to find myself attacked in the middle of the town, but I've been chased down. I mean, I remember the doe who chased me all the way down the tunnel of Heneth Anduin and attacked me when I was standing next to, like, down at the bottom in the camp.
And there's Lorien in the old days.
Right, exactly. So, you know, like, you know, at first I was just like, oh, look, I seem to be, like, bears seem to have followed me into town. How strange. And I didn't even notice that, A, they were the guards of the town, and B, there were then, like, invisible wielders of flying axes that were attacking us. But
I mean, it's pretty cool visual, though. I mean,
it was cool. All right, are we all here? Let's take off through the woods. Here we go. And so we're gonna head back to we're gonna go by the excavation again, and we're gonna look around to see if we can find, because we're gonna search around the Gladden Fields now. Having looked at the excavation, we were considering the topography last time and thinking about how things may or may not have changed since the time of Isildur, and also like how they can justify. Hey, look, there's another town down here. Maybe we should go to this other town.
Maybe.
There's another stable master, because then we can. Yeah, it's kind of nice to not have everything careening out of the landscape, hunting us.
Just the odd warg.
All right. Okay. So I'm just looking to see. All right. There's.
Sorry, trying to get my horse in third gear here.
Right. Yeah, I understand. That's why I'm riding the old-fashioned horse. God, that's a stump. I thought for a second that was a tower down there. It's just a very large stump.
Is that a tower? No, it's a stump. Is that a tower? No, it's a stump.
There's some very large stumps down there. Like there were some huge trees down by the river down there. Hi there, deer, who's not even attacking me.
Don't get cocky, kid.
Okay. Let's see. We're getting close now. Is this where we descended and swam out last time, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, this is the swine place, right, where all the pigs are swimming around. Okay. All right. So, all right. Now those fires we were looking at were up over here somewhere, weren't they? Weren't we looking across the river at the fires? Or were we looking up to the north? Maybe we were looking up to the north. Well, let's just see this town down here, because if we can quick ride down to here, then it'd be a little bit simpler. Then we wouldn't have to just ride out from Holdfist every time. I love fords. Sorry, I just really enjoy fords. I don't know why. Fords and Lotro. Just think they're cool. Okay, so all right, here's the town, or at least the stable master.
Yeah.
This will give us a more southerly point. But of course, oh man, I might not get to my explorations tonight if we have another town to look at. Blomgard. Okay. Blomgard. We've got.
So like the flower guard?
Huh. Look at this. The statues have the good faces backwards. These statues have their bad faces out to us. I mean, like the cruder ones.
They're warding faces.
I guess. Are the other ones the friendly face? The ones with the eyelids and the eyebrows?
Maybe.
Huh. But they've got the sleepy eyes faced out towards us. That's legitimately weird. Okay, and then we've got this old statue.
It's to lull people into a false sense of security, maybe.
Maybe. Okay, all right, stable master. She looks unhappy, but she has one of those wooden carvings on her belt.
Will you help us? There is
Yeah.
always more to be done.
She's standing in the rain, you know. She looks resigned. I think that's the word for it.
Resigned. Yeah. Well, it is raining. I mean, she's standing out in the rain. It's got to be fairly miserable.
Yeah.
At least this lady's got a hood, right? Sensibly.
It's a wrap. It's a hair wrap.
There you go. and she's got one of the rosary versions of the wooden scope. So these are clearly the same kind of culture. We see the same sorts of statues. Might as well dismount since we're here.
There definitely looks like there's some Rohirrim influences.
Yeah, and I thought that in the houses up there, like the newer houses, the towers look very Rohirrim, which again, that's not saying that much, but still, the houses, yes, I think especially the houses and their architecture, you miss the horsey bits.
I did,
but still, it's I agree.
Huh? Scrap of paper. Perk parchment.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a poem. When cold wind wails and fir tree creaks, through the gloom of night he sneaks, o'er wooden wall and rooftops thatched, unlocked window gate unlatched.
Oh, it's a Gollum poem?
Yeah, sure sounds like it.
Wow.
Like he's the regional boogeyman or something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you only have to find one or two cradles to build a substantial amount of regional notoriety, I would think.
Yeah.
That kind of word gets around.
Yeah, no, like 100 years from now, their parents are telling their children to be nice, or the sneaker will eat you up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not seeing any of the old huts. No, like, commemorative huts here.
No, just
we're still getting a lot of the old statues.
very functional, but very old.
Yeah.
Houses, animal pens, houses that are also animal pens.
Yeah. I mean, I still want to say that the green, this sort of green lichen, and by the way, like this brooch that could pass for a breastplate, as well, could double as a breastplate. You have to kind of admire the dedication to concept there. I mean, it's like it is both securing my cloak and also, protecting half of my vitals.
It's probably also worth some money too in case of emergencies.
Yeah, probably that much metal.
Well, if the houses weren't evidence to the contrary, I'd say the big metal dealies on them are very similar to what we saw on Vikings from Denmark who carried their treasures with them.
Right. Yeah.
I find it interesting that half of these pillars have faces on only one side. They're not two-faced, like the ones in Holtfist.
Oh, we don't have the Janus carvings here?
Yeah,
No.
well, in a lot of places we do, but no. So like this one is a sleepy eyes one. Yeah, they got a lot of these have their eyes shut. I mean, not this guy. Oh,
which
and
is
here's
weird,
like the
this
Great
place
Hall.
is called the Guard, the Blomgard,
Yeah.
which makes you think they'd be for like watching or something. Oh, this one's got a funny face. I like this one. He's like a garden gnome.
Yeah, this is the one. This is the face that was turned against the wall outside right by the outer gate. It's the same one.
I can't say this one looks any more vigilant than the other one.
No, I mean this is the one who looks vaguely hungover. I think is what I was saying before. Like it's the pouchy eyes that really make him, look like he's coming off a bender, and still forced to
Like Billy
stand
is
guard.
God of Hangovers kind of thing.
Right. But then his partner over here is both one-sided, right? Yes, carvings on the back, no face, and got his eyes closed. I mean, I think the hungover dude, is he the only one with his eyes open in the whole town? I mean, I've seen him in more than one place, but they really go for the closed eyes folks around here. Blomgard, they're not guarding but if it's blooms, flowers, they're not guarding them.
That's flower, be flower, like, Blumen fountain.
Yeah, they're not guarding the flowers very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember there were some one-face statues in Holdfist. They were in the minority, but there were a couple of those. We'll go up the stairs in a second. I just wanted to look around the rest of the... So, Emily, by the commemorative huts, what I mean is right in the center of Holdfist, next to the milestone, right in the town green there in the middle, are those old ancient round stone huts. No, wait, is this one over here? Hang on. No, I don't think so. That's like thatched and...
That looks like a grain silo.
Well, no, this is... Oh, see, like the roof. There's that slanty thing there. It does look... And it may still be used as a grain silo. But this is...
Oh, it's a smoker hut. It's a smoker.
The smoker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. That's your chimney. It's got the smoke going constantly. You'd hang your meat in there.
Maybe this doesn't look, though... The other one looked more different from the houses. Hey, wait. That's what's different. These are stone houses. Well, there's that, too. I mean, not all of them. There are some wooden houses, too, but these are... The other houses were... In Holdfist were mostly wood houses.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. This is definitely piled on... I want to say slate?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
I mean,
very
some of the,
thin.
like, the smaller sheds are wood, but a lot of the houses... This is a little wood house. But that's... I don't remember so many stone houses.
Yeah, it really does remind me of a nomadic people that have decided to settle down.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, sorry, now I've been going around in circles so much I forget. Where's the... Something direct me to the stairs? Where were the...
Yeah, but past the garden gnome.
Okay. Over there. They're there. Okay, sorry. Here we go.
Oh.
Yeah, when I'm just going around in circles looking at the buildings, I lost all sense of direction.
Lots of stone edifices here.
Okay, so we're going up the steps. There's another guy with his eyes
These
closed.
are stone steps here. These took some time.
Yeah. Who are these folks? Odahild and Everett.
Oh, Radagast.
Radagast is... Oh, look, there he is.
It's Radagast.
What do you know? A guest
Yeah.
appearance.
Right after his curtain bow.
Yeah.
Thanks for thinking of me. I don't think he sounds like Goofy, but it's top of my head. What do you want?
The stone stairs are obviously new because they're hardly worn. They're not worn at all.
Right.
They
Yeah,
haven't got any moss on them.
I was noticing
Yeah.
that. So I'm looking at Radagast's belt buckle.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think it's just red. I couldn't tell if there was a design on it, but I don't think there is.
No, but there's definitely a design on his belt itself. There's these viney patterns.
Oh yeah, the green one. Yeah, the little sash thing. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Little
I
bulge
love how
or whatever.
patched up his hat is. Everything else actually looks pretty neat, but his hat is like, he's had this hat for a while and he's not letting go of it.
Yeah, yeah. And the like cheek flaps. That's. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want a hat like that. Actually.
Yeah, it's
seems
coming
like
handy this winter.
Kind of seems like a fun hat.
It makes you, it makes you think he lives in a place where there's a lot of high winds.
Yeah. Or it'd probably be good for riding on eagles. I bet you put it on. I bet if you get up
Or
on an
any
eagle,
other.
you can strap it under your chin.
Yeah. Oh, it's like a little pilot's helmet with the straps under. He's only
Yeah.
missing his goggles.
It's only missing the goggles. Exactly.
That's so cute.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an aviator cap. Yeah. It's an aviator cap.
No, I dig it. I dig it.
Altered. Not exactly the same. What I don't get is the crown of it, which looks like it's made of an entirely different fabric. Like it's just got this different dome up here on the top.
Oh, on
Radagast
hat. Radagast hat. It looks like there's leather on the outside, and then he has like a soft floppy crown that goes on top.
Yeah, it's highly personalized. Highly personalized.
Just because you can make your own clothes doesn't mean you should.
Right. Okay, anyway, back to, sorry, Odahild and Everett. That was rude. I came up and then, but there is a celebrity standing right over there. So.
Yeah, sorry, there's precedence of place.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
one of them,
Okay, so she's got the little closed eye face dude, and so does he. Right at the nape, right, or not the nape, right at the throats, right?
Yeah.
The others have them hanging down on their belts generally, but they've both got them very prominently right there up on their breast.
It must be like the deity or Nissa or something or whatever that protects this village.
Something. I mean, both of them. Almost everybody in both villages had it.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost everybody in both villages had it. Their belt buckles are interesting. Very similar in style. They both got these big fat belts that are furry on the inside, right? And riveted around. But then they have the big old round buckles with the dangly bits.
Big Mildenhall treasure plate.
Yeah.
Belt there.
But they're different designs, right?
Yeah, this one looks kind of like an octopus over here.
Yeah, it's almost like a rose window.
Yeah.
Right, and then his is cruciform.
Or just, yeah, it's definitely Celtic knotwork kind of looking.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine the accuracy you'd need to have something with 12 arms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his is, definitely two intertwined big guys on the axis, and then little bits of knotwork to fill out the corner, each quarter.
Yeah. Now, Tomas is saying, I wonder if these people speak Anglo-Saxon like the Rohirrim. No, I think Gothic. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Odahild is kind of a giveaway. There. I think these are Gothic-derived names. We're doing an introduction to Gothic class at Signum this spring.
Ooh.
It's a brand new class that we're doing. We've never done it before. People are excited. People have been demanding. We've done Anglo-Saxon, we've done Old Norse. They're like, Gothic, we want to learn Gothic. So we're doing a Gothic class. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Of course, we've done our Gothic tradition class, but like there are Goths and then there are Goths, like that's a different kind of Goth.
Well, we're getting into, the Christmas holidays. This would be a fun time to look up some really old Germanic ways to celebrate. Short of setting villages on fire.
Right, not a recommended celebration. Notice he's got a bit of almost like a tartan thing going on with that sort of scarf business that's hanging. That's not exactly a tartan band. She's got it too, in the brown and green.
Yeah, looks very Celtic or Gaelic on it. I'm kind of disappointed they don't have trousers that match that.
Right. Yeah, I think they do have, maybe like leggings or something under there.
Could be. Yeah. No, I was kind of hoping for the big pouchy gall pants that we've seen.
Yeah.
Looks cool though.
And as for the house, it's got. Ooh, is that a window in the upstairs? It is.
Oh,
the other one had like a widow's walk up on the top, and that's actually a little
shutter,
room.
I think.
Yeah, a shutter. Maybe it is a shutter.
It looks like a wooden shutter.
Okay, so
it is a window. It is a window. It's a shuttered window.
Right, but probably like to let out smoke or something like that.
Or to just look out of in the morning.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. We can't go in, darn it. I don't know. I think that's probably. I would guess there's a fire in there. I mean, there is a chimney over on the side. Maybe two chimneys. Yeah. So maybe there is an upstairs.
Yeah, maybe it's just something you open in summertime.
Yeah. Not today, though.
Could be.
Boy, it looks miserable here.
But, by the way, did you have a chance to look at the new Rohirrim houses they got?
Nope.
Those are pretty fun.
Huh. Look at this over here. They built a new addition. Come around this side.
Oh, let me see.
Look at this is the only building without lichen on it in the whole town.
Oh yeah. This is relatively new wood.
This is totally new.
It's got shingles on top.
Yeah, exactly. Slate shingles instead of the thatch. The beams
Built an indoor
around
outhouse.
around the yeah. I mean, exactly. They needed they needed a little modernization, right, in their facilities or something. Built a little extension.
Or their oldest boy still can't get a job in this economy.
Right. Yeah. It could be an in-laws apartment, I suppose. But-
There's another shuttered window right next to it, up above. It's almost like a barn door. Like that's where you'd like bring in bales of hay or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, up there on with those beams
Yeah.
sticking out.
Yeah.
And there's a pulley.
Although I
Yeah,
wouldn't
just
trust
like
my weight
just
to those
like
beams.
hay. A hay
Oh
window.
yeah, it is a pulley. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it is a hay window then.
It could be a sauna, Nancy. That would be culturally appropriate. I like this little
there's
hatch. Is this
nothing-
like a
there's
root
no-
cellar down here?
Maybe there's nothing. Oh yeah. Definitely a root cellar. There's nothing indicate a chimney on top though if it was a sauna.
Oh, right up the little building. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing you'd need good ventilation on.
Yeah, nice
Maybe
windows.
Maybe it's the wrong time of year.
Nicer windows. Are there any glazed windows in the old house? In the front? What an odd. There are? Okay, I couldn't remember. What an odd little.
Yeah, yeah. It's that economical glazed window where it's we couldn't be bothered to make big old sheets of glass, so we're just doing little pebbles with bits of leading in between.
Yeah, well, that's already asking a lot. Oh man, why can't I get all the way up there? There we go.
We gotta come onto the side roof.
Oh well. Oh, you gotta
come over the
go
side,
up from
from
over
outside.
here.
Yeah.
Oh well. I can't get all the way up. That's fine.
Ah.
I'm not gonna. This is why I don't climb towers in Dunland. I just don't, and it's
That's
not
why I
gonna
don't
happen.
play platformers.
This is also why I don't walk tightropes with Grabine flying around. I won't do it.
Yeah, no, I refuse in principle.
I won't do it for love or money. Okay, I would do it for money. Not gonna lie, but no.
Maybe that could be your next Signum fundraiser.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I love how you can actually see where they like connected the roofs, right? The new roof and the old roof
Oh yeah.
from here, and the lichen has
Yeah, it looks
started
like-
to grow over.
Yeah, it looks like they needed a patch because something didn't quite take or fell in.
Yeah.
That's clever.
That is very interesting. What a fascinating little detail for them to put in on this building.
Yeah, you appreciate stuff like that.
And yes, there is the window in the front. Yeah, I wonder if the entryway is a little bit newer too. No, maybe not. I mean, it's got the lichen at least all over the beams.
Yeah, I mean the wood planks in the front are like underneath are a little newer. That just might simply be because all the water went on the roof instead of on the planks themselves.
Right.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if we're gonna find anything over here. It seems they have a lot of these little rooms just sort of jutting out from the main room.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they are family additions. Oh, another addition. Look at these planks.
I can't.
Brand new again.
I'm stuck here.
And the roof. Yeah, they're expanding both. I think at this point they're just going to have to start building on top.
Yeah. There's a little more room in the back if you don't mind losing the last strip of yard. But given that you've got the big over here, you've got
That chieftain's going, I don't want to mow it anyway.
right, exactly. When you've got to think this looks like, an ancestral home.
The other thing is maybe these rooms become unusable so that it's just easier to build new ones rather than fix them.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is going to be this is likely to be one of the older buildings in town. And it's not like you can just move out and upgrade,
Yeah, you just know it smells like mushrooms on the inside.
Yeah, and it goes with the office, surely. Will they have a gate in the back of the town, JJ? Interesting. Okay, so very similar to Holtvis, and yet some interesting differences. Radagast visiting. That's very nice. Okay.
Ooh, nice clay oven.
And what's this town? Oh, right. Blomgard. Right. Okay. Okay. Is Lyre-Lad a place where we can go?
Let me see.
Well, it's getting late anyway. Okay, well, we'll resume our search of the Gladden Fields next time, but now we can go to Holtvis and then swift travel down to here and just take off straight across the river. I think that'll be better. Okay, good. Well, all right, so we didn't get to our objective, but our search was not in vain. We found another cool town.
Yep.
And we're able to draw some shrewd conclusions about the recent family situation of the ruler of this town. So, there you go. There you go. So, Lyre-Lad is the place where we are, right? That's the kind of the name of the region for this. Okay. All right. Fine. Oh, wait, there's a milestone here? Of course there is. Yeah, let's just do that.
I just grabbed it real quick.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that.
Yep.
I'll replace my Holtvis one, because I can always get back to Holtvis from here if we want to. There we go.
Yep.
Excellent. So we'll just milestone straight down to here, and then this will be more convenient both for the Gladden Fields and then up to Roscobo. We'll want to go down to the Duskin Vale, I suppose, to be thorough.
Wow, there's a lot more here than I thought there was.
Yeah,
I'm really impressed.
It's a lot of stuff. And then we'll head up to the Carrick and the Bjorning lands. And then we'll see where we'll see where that brings us and where we want to go from there. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for helping me find another little town, and good to see the, so now after we've seen these two, I'll have to go back to that town where we got attacked by the levitating axes and actually explore it a little bit rather than running for our lives. Or just being slaughtered, which is what I did quite promptly. So we'll explore that a little bit more thoroughly another time. Yeah, cool. So good to discover some fun things from around here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me on this epic exploration of The Lord of the Rings and of Standing Stone's video adaptation of Tolkien's story. If you are having even half the fun I'm having on this journey, I hope you will consider supporting the project by donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.